Hi, and welcome to MiWeek. Thanks for joining us. I'm Stephen Henderson of the Detroit Free Press, holding down the fort while Christy McDonald is on vacation. We've got a lot to get to tonight. We'll talk about where Michigan's economy is ranked compared to other states, and we're going to look at an eye-opening report about the economic disparities in Mission school districts that border on each other. But first, a survey by the Downtown Detroit Partnership shows that 91% of Metro Detroiters have a positive impression of downtown. Here are some of the highlights from the survey of nearly 4,000 people. The majority feel that downtown Detroit has a lot of potential. 92% say it's a good place to take out-of-town guests, and 88% say they visited downtown in the past year. But there were some less favorable impressions as well. Only 69% feel downtown is safe at night. Less than 40% feel the Central Business District is welcoming to the LGBT community, and a meager 15% feel city buses are convenient options for getting to and around downtown. Here to talk about the survey is the CEO of the Downtown Detroit Partnership, Eric Larson, and of course we have regular MiWeek contributor Nolan Finley, editorial page editor of the Detroit News. Guys, welcome to MiWeek.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah, so
great to be with you.
Big difference in those numbers. Really high on one end, really low on the others, and I guess you wouldn't necessarily be surprised about the areas that we have challenges with.
No, I don't think it does come as a surprise, but I think first and foremost, this is a survey that we started 2 years ago. So this is the second of an annual survey that we intend to do, every year. It's been supported by Hudson Weber. Hudson Weber has taken a very strong interest in how are we moving the city forward and making sure that there are, we're addressing not only the highlights but also some of the challenges. And so with that support, we really are using this as a data set to inform and educate what is working and what isn't, working as well as we want it to be. And so while we've created an environment in really a very short period of time, I mean, the three of us have been living downtown Detroit for a long time, and this is a very unique moment. And so there are a number of things like the activities and the visitors, the increased visitors and the increased work population in daytime, during the daytime. But there are still some challenges around things like safety, around things about how do we access the city, how do we make sure that the city is really inclusive to everyone. And so we're working on that, and that's a big part of the Downtown Detroit Partnership's mission, is to really address
How much of the negative do you feel like is perception versus reality? And I'm thinking there specifically about safety. I mean, downtown is actually a pretty safe place, and relatively speaking, it's a lot safer than some other areas of the city.
Oh, I mean, great point, and I think there is, a big part of this that is perception. But the problem is, 99% of reality of perception. So, so we got to address the perception, and the facts are, especially during the daytime, the downtown is incredibly safe. We have no, crimes of violence in the downtown. What we do have is a lot of crimes of opportunity, and that gets to being around educating those. We've had a lot more traffic, a lot more people that are coming to the city that haven't, been in the city before. And so where do you park where it's safe? Trying to get people to go to lots that are attended and well lit.
But do we need larger police presence in the downtown footprint?
The city has, again, we've all been living it over the last 40 or 50 years, really gone from a very robust economy to and set of resources to something that, really has been much more challenged and demanded. And yes, the city resources in general, especially the policing resources, are stretched. I mean, they're stretched across the entire geography of the city, and we do have less officers downtown. That said, we've never had a better partnership with the Detroit Police Department. We've never had better leadership, quite frankly. I mean, it starts with James Craig and goes all the way through. But so they are working with us to try and figure out creative ways to take what is ultimately less bodies and deploy them more effectively. We're working with them on after-hour assignments and engagements with the police force, so that we can actually have sworn officers on the streets, but after hours in a extra income capacity. So there are things that we are working, but yes, we have less people on the street.
So Eric, you mentioned that this turnaround in perception has come fairly quickly over the last 5 or 6 years. We all remember, sitting around having discussions about Detroit's bad image and how do you improve Detroit's bad image. And, you know, I felt all along you're not going to change the image without changing the reality. And the reality downtown has changed fairly rapidly.
Oh, it's changed incredibly rapidly. I mean, I would never have guessed, even 6 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, I would never have guessed that the downtown would change as rapidly as it has. I mean, Sue Mosey in Midtown has been working at this for 25 years, and she's been doing it brick by brick. But downtown has transformed literally in chunks. I mean, so, and a lot of that has been driven by, you know, our two billionaires, the Ilitch family and Dan Gilbert, and what they have done in a very short period of time has not only, you know, activated the city and repositioned the city and changed the perception, but it also has filled in the city, because a big part of the safety, you know, and the perception of safety is where you have these, you know, these areas of inactivity, and we now are filling that in. I mean, there's nothing like, I mean, I've said for a long time, I think one of the most important projects to happen in the downtown is this new Red Wing Arena, because it was its footprint itself was an infill project that allowed us to bridge and link the Midtown and downtown in an area that desperately needed that. And so there are things like that that I think are very important.
Yeah. What do you imagine is behind the low number related to LGBT sort of welcoming environment in downtown? Do you think that's something specific, or is it more general?
You know, I think, Stephen, I think it really gets to the fact that the core downtown has been much more a business environment, and for a long time, corporate America didn't necessarily embrace a lot of those kinds of activities. I think that has changed significantly, and it will continue to change. But the reality is, for a long time, it was sort of the financial district. It was, you know, where people came in the corporate, you know, community and in the public sector, but to work. It now has become much more about the, you know, 24/7, a much more diverse set of activities, and that ultimately will build on a more inclusive environment. But I do think that, you know, in general, our community needs to continue to embrace, you know, sort of, you know, all walks of life, all forms of need, and all forms of opinion, and I think we're moving in the right direction.
And I would imagine that some of that change will take place as we get more and more housing downtown too, and it takes on a really different kind of feel. It's not just about business; people live there.
That's right. I mean, the residential population, you know, will make, and quite frankly, the retail offerings that are starting to really materialize. You know, will make a very big difference. I also think that as we improve the transit options, those kinds of things allow for additional access. The fact that, I mean, you both know the facts better than I, but I think 40% of the Detroit population doesn't have access to a personal vehicle. You know, that's important.
Well, beyond that, I mean, parking's such a challenge now downtown. If people felt comfortable getting on a bus and were able to get on a bus and come downtown, I think it's not just, you know, folks who have to ride a bus, but I think there would be a lot of people who'd say, wow, I can get on this thing, and then I don't have to park, I don't have to worry about Ubering home or whatever. I think it would really help downtown if we could get our bus system right.
Yeah, I think that's right, Nolan. And it's interesting, you know, one of the things that the partnership, the DDP, is focused on is long-range planning. And so 6 years ago, we did this transit-oriented development plan that was the precursor to M1. And really thinking about how do we take that main street and convert it into something that is alternate, you know, has an alternative mobility component to it. We also are working on a significant installation of bike lanes throughout the downtown that ultimately connect to the Greenway initiatives and so forth that are taking place. And those need to be done in a way that they're protected and actually, you know, really accessible. I mean, one of the things that came out of the survey is that a very low percentage, 35% of the people polled, believed that there was, you know, safe and viable biking options in the downtown. Those kinds of things are the things that we need to continue to work on. And so, you know, as M1 comes online, that's going to change the way we park.
And I mean, that is sort of essential. I mean, downtown has always been sort of a series of clusters. You've had New Center, Midtown, Central Business District, Corktown, and they're really not, I mean, you really have to get in your car to go from place to place. Already you're seeing along the M line development. It's not open yet, but you're seeing new apartments, new offices going up all along the route and 2 or 3 blocks over. How important is that line going to be to knitting together these various clumps of downtown?
Yeah, I think M1 and the Q line now, as it's been named, is really extremely important. It's important, again, we get to talk about the perception. We started this conversation around perception, so it changes the perception about who we are as a community and how we're embracing other forms of mobility. But it also changes the mechanics of how we operate as a society in the downtown, as a community in the downtown. So we will see that change. I mean, already people are thinking about strategic locations for parking employees that are much further up north on the line, that then can come into the city and allow for access, additional access for those that are visiting. So I think as we get into this, and the city is ramping up on its planning department, I mean, what Maurice Cox and the group that he's putting together is very, very important at this moment. So I think we'll get there.
All right, Eric Larson, CEO of the Downtown Detroit Partnership. Thanks very much
Thank you,
for
Steve.
being here.
Thank you, Nolan.
Thanks, Eric.
It was great to be here.
Yeah.